Hi, just was wondering, do you happen to have a copy of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu with the Pokeball?
I don't think I have Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, but I do have Let's Go Eevee. If you would like that, first come, first serve.
Alright, I'll be there in a few minutes. Bye. It seems that every day that passes by since E3, Pokemon Sword and Shield is looking worse and worse, and there's just a lot more information coming out that is not good. And there has been a ton of backlash to this game ever since some details were revealed at E3. Now, when Nintendo revealed games like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Federation Force, and Paper Mario Color Splash, people were really pissed off when they were first revealed because they weren't the Metroid or Paper Mario they wanted. But it was pretty much just the same complaints. This isn't the Paper Mario game I wanted, this isn't the Metroid that I wanted. But it didn't really
Mm.
escalate from there. I mean, sure, people wanted those games canceled, but I haven't seen backlash this strong into a game like Pokemon. I've never seen anything like it, even with Let's Go.
Yeah. Coming from a casual Pokemon fan, kind of, I've been trying to get into the games for years. I like certain things about the franchise, not really everything. But as a sort of outsider, I have never seen anything like this. I even if a game is decent, Pokemon fans will buy it. I've never seen such a unity against a game in the Pokemon franchise ever.
Like, there's probably been a few controversies here and there. Let's Go is the
Hmm.
most recent memory I can think of where people are saying, it's not really a core Pokemon game. I mean, I'm just gonna give my
Yeah,
thoughts on Let's Go since I actually played it. I was
sure.
interested about it when it was first revealed, then I kind of lost interest. I saw some reviews, I didn't really like it. Got the game for
Hmm.
50 bucks one day with the Pokeball, and it was the Let's Go Iwi bundle, by the way, for $50. And I really enjoyed the game. I mean, sure, it's not the Pokemon game that most fans would really like, but I found it fun and it made a lot of improvements to the game. However, with Sword and Shield, it's been
Mm.
kind of a yearly thing to get a new Pokemon game in the mainline series, and when that happens, I kind of lose interest in it. But Pokemon Sword and Shield looked pretty good when it was first revealed, and when they had the direct, it looked pretty good. But then things escalated for the worst when E3 came, and Masuda announced that not every Pokemon would be obtainable in the game, because there will be no
Mm.
National Dex this time, and no way to transfer Pokemon from previous generations. Now, do you know about that at all? Because you haven't really gotten into the mainline games, but
I know the general basic concept of it. Thanks to you and a couple of my other friends. To my understanding, it goes to the effect of the other Pokemon from all the other games won't be available in your team for this particular game.
and yeah. Now, some could say, well, does anyone like Pokemon like Mr. Mime or Muck the Blob? Who would care about adding them in? But I say to that, everyone has a favorite Pokemon no matter how obscure, and for a series
Hmm.
that's motto is literally gotta catch 'em all, and that was a theme song too,
Yeah.
this is
Hmm.
inexcusable. Now, another thing about Pokemon Sword and Shield that a lot of people are upset about is just the laziness that they're noticing with the presentation and the gameplay, and just the amount of excuses, not just from the fans, but the
Mm.
developers too. Now you've seen
Mm.
how the game looks, and because this
Yeah.
is the first Pokemon mainline game on a home console, I mean technically Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee are the mainline games, but we're
Hmm.
talking core RPG games. People
Yeah.
really expected more because we've seen what happened with Zelda and Mario. They got
Hmm.
completely new entries in the series that were innovative and fresh. And to see something that just kind of looks like an upscaled 3DS game where the tree textures are from the N64, people are upset. And yeah, the tree isn't the reason why I think people are upset. It just represents just the graphical fidelity of the
Yeah.
game where it doesn't look that good.
So I will admit, when I watched the first trailer for the Pokemon Direct, it looked pretty solid to me. I think a lot of people thought it looked pretty solid. I like the location. I thought it looked really nice. A lot of the problems didn't come until afterwards, so I wasn't really keeping tabs on the game, and I kind of tuned out of the E3 section of it because I was kind of waiting for other games. Little did I know, people were getting furious about it. And I decided to go over to Nintendo's page and check out the like to dislike ratio. And oh my God, the dislikes were insane. So I was like, okay, now I have to figure out what's going on. And you know, I a lot of things that I saw and a lot of things that I did my research on seemed really lazy on not only the Pokemon Company's side but Game Freak's side, especially that tree, the tree with the texture on it. That is unacceptable, especially from Nintendo or Game Freak. I understand
Actually,
they've been making hand.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a common misconception. Think Disney and Pixar. Nintendo technically owns the Pokemon
Oh no no
Company
no
and
no.
Game Freak. They're just the distributors of the game. They're not the ones who
No,
make them.
I
So,
know.
to
No, I
anyone out there who's
understand.
calling out Nintendo on this, I'm all for calling out Nintendo when they make mistakes like having no online multiplayer with friends in Super Mario Maker 2. Well, formerly, since they're
Yeah.
adding that in. But it's not fair to blame a company that has nothing to do with it for something
Well,
like this.
okay, so I'm not blaming Nintendo entirely. What I was saying is that they do have some involvement with the Pokemon games, even if the Pokemon Company is one of their second party developers. I know that Game Freak has a lot of control over their products and so on and so forth. Um, but I will say that Nintendo, as their distributor, should be worried because it's yes, we could blame Game Freak all we want, but whose name is going to be attached with the blame the most? It's going to be Nintendo.
That's a pretty fair
So,
argument to make.
it is because when you think of Pokemon, you think Nintendo, right? So even if it is Game Freak's problem, it's also Nintendo's problem now because not only is Game Freak their second party company, but Pokemon is a staple of different Nintendo franchises that they own, right?
Right.
And this tarnish this tarnish that's happening right now in the Pokemon community, whether or not you believe any press is good press, this does not fare well for Nintendo, especially since they had a controversy that you brought up earlier about Super Mario Maker 2 not having online multiplayer.
Yeah.
They just fixed that, and now they got another debacle on their hand. So what I'm saying is that Nintendo gets a lot of the blame, right? And I
Right.
think they should have seen that coming and should have stepped in when Game Freak was messing up. Maybe they don't have that power. I don't know. But I do know that Nintendo are very involved with the Pokemon games.
By developing it or just distributing them, because Nintendo has limited development with the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. Those are the ones making the Pokemon games. It's not something like
No,
Retro and
yeah.
Nintendo or Next Level Games where they're joining each other hand to hand and making the games as good as possible. This is
Well,
a little bit different right here.
yeah. What I'm saying is that Nintendo has oversight. I'm not saying that they have developers over there making the game with them. I'm just saying that there should be some quality of assurance that something good is coming out, right? But
Right.
I feel like what you were telling me beforehand, you know, adds to this, and that's the fact that a lot of people are saying that they've had this coming for a long time. And based on the gameplay I've seen in Sword and Shield and the past few Pokemon games, I see exactly what everyone's talking about.
So the
It's
pattern of it going
pathetic.
downhill.
Not only that, but the pattern of just reusing assets and reusing the same art style. It's like different franchise, but it's like the Kirby series recently with the Return to Dreamland style.
Well, I
Of
don't think it
course,
was
like
to
some of
that
those games.
extent because Kirby is
No, no, no,
not
no.
as
Yeah,
huge as Pokemon. They're just fun little games. And I think the past
no,
few
I
games that were
understand.
the
Yeah.
Return to Dreamland style were really good, except for Kirby Star Allies, which ugh, I didn't like that game. But
What I what I m- what I mean is that it's lazy to reuse assets for about 4 games or more. And I think you have to agree with that, even despite whether or not the Kirby games are good or not. Uh, Besides that, though, um, a lot of the Pokemon gameplay hasn't really evolved either, and a lot of the reason why I can't get into Pokemon is because it's a type of RPG that I'm not really crazy about, which is a JRPG. And I understand people have like a place in their hearts for
it's
that
not
and so
exactly a
on and so forth.
JRPG. It's not something like that, but
Well, I don't know. It kind of feels like a JRPG to me. I'll just call it an RPG for now. Uh, but the type of RPG that it is, isn't really my style, and I feel like, especially with Mario and Zelda, like you were saying before, how they've evolved and innovated. I was kind of hoping the same thing with this Pokemon game, and for me being like on board, because I know a lot of Zelda, a lot of Breath of the Wild fans who weren't even Zelda fans before, but were on board with Breath of the Wild because it was just fresh and innovative. I was
Mario
hoping for that
Odyssey
with
too.
Pokemon. Yeah, but I was hoping for that with Pokemon, and it's just the same crap. I can't get into it, man. I've tried with like, I don't know, like 3 games already, and I can't. But yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't.
Now, when this controversy has become a thing, especially with the National Dex, I think that's the killer to the game because people like every Pokemon. That's the fun of Pokemon, collecting all of them. Literally, gotta catch
Mm-hmm.
them all. And that's a
Yeah.
major problem. And it's a bunch of little things that keep on adding up that people are getting upset about. Like Dynamaxing. That is the lamest thing that I've seen implemented in any Pokemon game. What, the Pokemon just get Mega? What is this, Mario
Oh
Tennis
yeah.
Ultra Smash?
I was slightly confused because I was like, wait, that's what the big gimmick was the whole time. They just turned big. So what are we? Is this just like New Super Mario Brothers where everything's big now? Uh, with the Mega Mushroom. I don't know. That's just kind of lame. I don't know, man.
Now, here's another thing
Yeah.
I
It's.
noticed.
Hmm.
I did a video on this whole topic, and it was really mainly about stuff like criticism and feedback in games, mainly about
Hmm.
Super Mario Maker 2. I touched on Pokemon a little bit, but I want to go
Hmm.
more in depth with this because I have never seen so many excuses for a game ever. Just like the Backlash, there are quite a few
Yeah.
people making excuses, and I am just not happy about it. Not because they have an
Yeah.
opinion, but because people are saying this is why Masuda left Twitter and this is harassment when people are nicely giving criticism. Like, there's this guy on YouTube I watch. He doesn't really make videos about SpongeBob anymore, but that's how I found out about him. His name's Pie Guy Rules, and he tweeted something about Game Freak, and I can read it verbatim. I'm so proud of fellow Pokemon fans. Game Freak has gotten away with laziness for far too long. It's great to see the community rally and spam comments on Twitter without harassing anyone. I've seen post after post of reasonable complaints about the upcoming games. It's great. So what he's saying is there are going to be the people who harass, but there are also the people who are willing to give their opinions out there in a dignified manner. And that's completely understandable. The
Hmm.
Pokédex thing, it's inexcusable. The people who are saying, well, of course they can't add every Pokemon, they have a deadline. Oh, look at all the
Hmm.
animations with the models, that'll be far too many to include in the Switch cartridge. Think of it this way,
That's yeah. That's bull crap.
the 3DS is a way less powerful system, a system that came out in 2011, and that had over 800 Pokemon. Every Pokemon is available in that game. On the
Hmm.
3DS, this
Yeah.
is a much more powerful console. the models really aren't changed. In fact, Game Freak decided to make 3D models for every Pokemon because they knew that they were going to use them and reuse them. So they were
Hmm.
built to be HD models. They were just downgraded for the 3DS games.
So,
So they knew
hmm
that they'd be using them in the future. And there have been
so,
animators on
yeah,
YouTube who have debunked this theory that the animations are the reason why they can't include every Pokemon or
of
just a file
course.
size because in reality, if you look at the rest of the game and how things are building up, I think it's pretty clear that the main problem here is laziness, and there are a few other catalysts to why Pokemon's going downhill. Now,
Yeah.
I enjoyed Pokemon X and Y, I enjoyed Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I'd say Pokemon hit the peak of its series when they released Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Those were the best games in the series. I'm glad that was the one I was introduced to first. I haven't really played much of Black and White, but I heard they were really good too. So you could say it was Black 2 that was the peak of this series, but to me it was Soul Silver because that is everything you'd want a Pokemon game to be. And of course they're
Hmm.
trying a few new things like getting rid of wild battles in Pokemon, but they're not really changing a lot. It's similar to the 3DS games.
Hmm.
And there are a few reasons why I think it's going downhill. The first reason I think is the yearly releases. There has been pretty much a yearly release ever since 2011 with Pokemon Black and White, with the exception of
Hmm.
2015, of course, which didn't have any main release. So they've been
Hmm.
releasing a new Pokemon game every year, and I think that's not allowing them to focus on the Pokemon games that they want to focus on, or, you know, they don't have the time and effort to put into every Pokemon game like they used to.
I also heard, I don't know if this is true, that they're also working on that town game for the Switch,
Yeah,
and
that
that's
confused me.
and yeah, and we haven't heard anything on that. So somebody was speculating that maybe the reason why, we haven't we don't see every Pokemon in the games because they're working on town simultaneously, but I don't know. I think that's a lazy excuse. And to bring up another game that is gigantic, uh, that isn't Pokemon, is a game that I mentioned before, Breath of the Wild. It's probably one of the biggest games of all time, and that thing runs on the Switch.
Yeah, so I don't know why they can't include every Pokemon when the models are there and the
Yeah,
animations, they're not really animations, and that's
it's
fine.
lazy.
That's fine
Yeah,
if they were to include every Pokemon. But to use it as an excuse, that's not right because it's just not the truth. It's been debunked before. There are a ton of
yeah.
excuses out there for the quality of Sword and Shield not looking so good so far. And when people say things like, well, the game hasn't come out yet, you can't tell if it's bad or not. In cases like
It comes.
this,
Yeah.
oftentimes you can kind of tell if a game is not going to be the best. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
it's always the case, but it's more
Yeah.
common than you think. And other excuses that are pretty common are you're harassing Masuda. I mentioned that before. For a Switch
Yeah.
game, it's beautiful. I didn't care about any of the
It's
cut Pokemon. Try using new Pokemon instead of using the same team that you've been using for 15 years. I don't get why people care about the Pokemon that other people use. You don't have to use Pokemon from 15 years ago, but if someone wants to, let them have the option to do that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think option is what makes games fun, right?
Right.
Uh, I will say I will say that the situation right now is it's really bad. uh, and I wish I could be more like invested in the franchise to feel the full effect of it, but I could relate to it on certain levels because, uh, but the Pokemon Company aren't the only people doing this in the gaming space right now, and
Yeah.
uh, one of the and it's really bad what they're doing. So a lot of game development teams will do a yearly release for their games, and it will lack in quality just to get a game out for the holidays.
Well, we saw
That's
that with Call of
Pokemon.
Duty, and that's what Pokemon's doing now. And that's why I
But
kind of
not,
lost
yeah.
interest in the series because it's just so saturated now that it's pretty much meaningless.
Welcome to the Sonic fan base. uh, no,
But hey, at
I
least
listen.
Pikachu is cute in
Yeah.
Detective Pikachu. We don't have to worry about that.
Oh, of course. No, listen.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Sonic fan, but you know that's a franchise that I think I have to bring up because that's kind of not in a similar state, but they were a while ago, and I still think they are. To be honest with you, there was a point where a Sonic game was coming out every single year, and those were the years when we got Sonic and the Secret Rings, Black Knight, Unleashed, really controversial and mixed reviewed games. So they had to stop and they had to like take their time with their games, regardless of what's happening with Sega right now. But you know, it's disappointing to see that after all these years, with Pokemon, at least from what I've heard, nothing's really changed gameplay wise. I mean, yeah, you have the core gameplay there, but make some quality of life improvements and innovate like
They
Breath
kind
of
of
the
did that with
Wild
Let's
did.
Go.
Yeah, those were more quality of life changes. They were It wasn't really like anything innovative. I was hoping, as a casual Pokemon fan, again, that Sword and Shield would be truly amazing. You know, I was hoping that I don't know. I think like every fan, I was kind of hoping for the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon, and I don't think that's really crazy to think when it's the first console Pokemon experience.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you know, as someone who feels for these fans, I'm really sorry you guys got to go through this, but you know, you guys gotta keep fighting. You know, uh, so one thing I kind of don't get is Masuda himself. Now, I'm not really familiar with the guy. I don't know what his role is. I think you mentioned that he's kind of the Miyamoto of the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of.
can you? So it seems to me that he is one of the main issues, but I think, in my opinion, I would argue that mobile games are the huge issue going into the business decisions that the Pokemon Company has gone with.
So with Masuda, I just think the communication has been really poor between the fans and the Pokemon Company. I mean, kind of think Nintendo of 2015 and 2016. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna mention this video because you're absolutely right, and I had no idea that this actually factored into it, but it all makes sense now. This guy on YouTube, Sylph Spectre, he made a video saying the real reason for no National Dex, Pokemon Sword and Shield. And he
Hmm.
attributed the mobile games to that. And Pokemon is trying to become a mobile company because of the excuse, or not excuse, sorry, I just keep on thinking about them because just like the criticism, there are so many of them out there. The
Yeah.
success of Pokemon Go. That was a huge success for Game Freak. You remember how it
Hmm.
took over the world in 2016?
Yeah, my friends who never even played Pokemon were just traveling the world and like going on like bike ride adventures with each other. It was crazy.
That got Game Freak a lot of money. And what I'm
Hmm.
starting to see in other people too, like he pointed out in the video, if you watch the
Hmm.
Pokemon Direct, they have a bunch of mobile games coming out. There's the one made by DNA, which is also developing Dr. Mario World and Mario Kart Tour. There's Pokemon Sleep, Pokemon Home. I'm not sure if there are any more, but the point is, because Pokemon Go was such a success, they're not focusing that much on the hardcore games like they used to, and they're focusing
Hmm.
more on these mobile games because they're easy to make, and that's where the success is.
Well, not only that, I also feel like there's kind of a cultural difference as well. Like you were saying, there's really no communication. There's kind of a barrier in terms of communication with Game Freak, Japan, and us from America. Um, and I think the main yeah the main issue is that they're not getting our message, but it's also because um, the Japanese market thrives on mobile gaming. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah,
It's
the
not just
gotcha games.
yes.
and that's why I'm not liking Nintendo's mobile initiative. That's another rant, but
Yeah, we could go
um,
on all day about that.
yeah, and it's more of like their logic. Uh, the thing is, I think companies like Game Freak are kind of stuck in their own bubble, right?
Right,
They think, oh, it's Pokemon, it'll sell, right? But they're also stuck in their own bubble because culturally it's acceptable to have just mobile games, right?
right.
Because it's so popular over there. One of the main reasons I think Nintendo jumped into the mobile market. Because to be honest, I really think mobile gaming has kind of staggered a little bit over the years. At least here, it's not as huge as it used to be when Angry Birds was around and so on and so forth. But in Japan, it might have been even bigger. Um, so I think a lot of it goes. I think a lot of it comes from the fact that you know, Japan is kind of in their own world with this mobile gaming stuff. They're greedy and they want to keep everything cheap when they're a multi-million-dollar company.
Exactly. And that's a big problem. This isn't exactly the same because it's not a mobile game, but you remember when New
Yeah,
Super Mario Bros. Came out in 2006 and that forever changed Mario? Well, not forever, but
yeah,
there was a time period where
for a while.
all the games were very similar to each other and they just got more dumbed
Yeah,
down and they weren't really taking risks. Throughout
yeah.
2009 to 2013, we were getting a new
Mm,
Mario game every year in the main series, and only two of
mhm.
those I would say were really good. It was Galaxy 2 and 3D World. I'd
It's
say
the
New
same.
Super Mario Bros. Wii too.
It was the same thing with Sonic when Generations came out. After that game, guess what we kept getting? Green Hill Zone, baby. Oh yeah, in every single game, and we hated it. And the games just pandered towards nostalgia.
That's how
And
Pokemon fans feel about Kanto and Kanto Pokemon. Like, we're sick of seeing these. We want to see some more obscure Pokemon, and that's a problem. Because if there's
yeah,
no National Dex, we're not going to see them, and they're probably going to say, featuring all 151 Pokemon you loved from Kanto.
see, and it's not just Pokemon who has this issue. It's a lot of companies who are struggling to kind of find a new market. So what they're doing is banking off of nostalgia or something that they think works for them, or in the case of Pokemon, mobile gaming. Because let's be honest, Let's Go was just kind of a gateway for people to jump from the mobile devices to the Switch.
Exactly.
Um, so me personally, if I had to kind of combine the both of them, I would have just maybe shared my Pokemon from my Pokemon Go account to my Switch, and that would be at the end of it. That would be the only connectivity there. I would not dumb down the gameplay just for a stupid mobile game. But that's just me. Again, I'm just a fan, so what do I know?
Now, let's say they do fix the issues, and they fix them through updates and stuff. I don't think this
Yeah.
is going to happen, but let's say they decide to add Pokemon every month or so. This would be another problem because it's one of the things I dread in games.
Yep.
Games as a service, which pretty much is,
Yep.
hey, we're not going to finish the game when we release it, but we'll fix it later. Or not. Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that's exactly what they're doing. I know you have hope that they're not, but this just I've seen this before and this reeks of games as a service. I'm telling you, there's something fishy going on. This has been going on for weeks and they haven't said anything. It's a little bit fishy. I mean, yes, it's Nintendo. They don't really
Not Nintendo,
make
Game
public
Freak.
announcements like
Even
that.
Nintendo's making public announcements, like a
Regardless,
Mario Maker. And they listen to the fans
well,
about that.
yeah, technically that was during E3 though.
Still.
They didn't really make like well, they did, but that was afterwards. I don't know. It's tough. I can't imagine the meetings that they're having right now with Game Freak. I honestly think I think in my opinion Masuda is kind of the big problem here.
And just the laziness and not well
Yeah.
time management. They're
No.
making a new IP called Town, and they're not even finishing the textures on the trees or including every Pokemon. Now I'm all for new IPs, but that would
Mm,
be like if Sakurai made or a new Kid Icarus game and a new
mm,
Smash at the same time. And
Yeah.
Smash's only new characters were Spike and Pink Gold Peach, and there were most characters cut from Smash 4. And then the Kid Icarus game wouldn't be that good either. But he wouldn't do that.
Well,
Sakurai
yeah,
has integrity. Game
yeah.
Freak does not.
And to
If
be
they're gonna
fair, it's
do
yeah.
this, they
Hmm.
should be called out for it because they're a multi-billion-dollar company. I would argue that Pikachu is more popular than Mario, and to see a company like
Yeah.
this just be lazy and screw over the fans, I'm
Hmm.
glad people are speaking up about this because this has been going on for a long time. Pokemon X and Y, pretty good reception. Pokemon Sun and Moon, mm, it was alright.
Hmm.
Pokemon Sword and Shield, people are furious about it, and they want
Yeah.
more from a game that's as huge as Pokemon. They want Pokemon to get the
Now,
Breath of the Wild treatment. They want it to evolve. But it seems like Pokemon is carrying an Everstone. But what could be done to fix it?
now, there's a few things that I'm thinking. The first one is kind of the obvious thing: delay it by a year, which they will not do. I'm sorry. This is Game Freak we're talking about. But another thing that I think they might do is fix it in a patch or something. Or the most likely reason, in my opinion, they won't do crap. They won't do anything. Um, like you said, Nintendo, yes, does have a say in what is being distributed, but at the end of the day, I think it's up to Game Freak, because they are kind of the sole proprietors of the series. Um, and you know what? I think that's good. Mostly because I kind of want them. I kind of want this to blow up in their face. You know what I mean? I kind of want this game to bomb so that they can kind of be like, oh, okay, people did not like that. You know, because it's great when people speak with their money for games that they like, but it's even greater when people unite against a game that or against a whole franchise where they're like, no, we can't take this anymore. We need change. You know, and you don't see that a lot because there's so many shills. There are so many shills, and what I mean by shills is that people kind of try to defend the games as just, oh, it's got 5 months to go. It's gonna be fine. No.
And with the delay thing, people are using, oh, well, there's a trading card game in the TV show. They can't delay it, possibly. You know what I think should happen? If they can't
Hmm.
delay the game, they should try their best to fix the problems with it, and they probably won't. So, it's probably gonna fail if people are willing to speak up. I don't think people should buy it if they're against it, and then they'll
Hmm.
learn the hard way. Because as
This,
seen with games like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Metroid Prime Federation Force, and Star Fox Zero, people didn't want those games, and they all went on clearance. Look what's happening now. Star Fox is
yeah.
kind of in hibernation. We're getting Metroid Prime 4, and Animal Crossing New Horizons looks beautiful. So if
Yeah.
people actually vote with their wallet, I think it could
Mhm.
solve the problem, and eventually we'll get a next-gen Pokemon instead of whatever this is right here.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think there really needs to be new leadership because if I'm being honest with you, I think they're gonna stick with that formula just because of how popular Pokemon Go was. Now, if Pokemon Sword and Shield bombs, then I think they're gonna start listening to the fans. I honestly think they should start listening already right now.
Yeah,
But I just don't think there's really any saving this game. And again, this isn't just Pokemon. A lot of companies are doing this now. You know, they're
right.
just they're just popping out games and just using the brand recognition for people to buy it. And shills will buy it because, oh, the box art looks cool.
Even the box art
And
is lazy.
I haven't seen the box art, but I did see the legendaries, and they look awful.
They do. None of the Pokemon
What
really
is
look
that?
that enticing. Well, let's
No,
see.
they don't.
It just
Was
looks
it
like
Bugs Bunny ripoff?
no, it just looks the legendaries look like a dog
Yeah.
carrying a sword. and just a
Why
dog with
wasn't
a mane.
well why wasn't the sword a tail?
Because it's Game Freak we're talking about, and if they can't even put the texture on a tree, what makes you think that they could think of ideas like that?
It's basic. Come on, they had to think of that. Why would you put the sword in the dog's mouth? Why can't it be the tail? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And the shield dog looks stupid too.
And then you ran off with dogs.
No, I don't know, man. It's just this is never. I've never seen really anything to this extent. I mean, in the Sonic fan base, this has happened before with like Sonic Forces, but this is to a higher degree. You know, this is Pokemon we're talking about. Nobody has really had anything like super negative to say about Pokemon, especially the fans. And the fact that they're speaking out now about it is really, it's surprising. And you know what? I think it's good for things to come, because I heard that game companies are even scared to show off gameplay anymore because they're scared of fan outcry. That's how scared game developers are of us, and I think that's a good thing.
Exactly. I mean, they should still take risks, but not
Yeah.
listening to the fans and doing stupid things like not including every Pokemon. And there's
Hmm.
another problem too. I'll go over it quickly. They're releasing something called Pokemon Home, which you
Mm.
can transfer your Pokemon to. So you're paying a subscription fee for the promise that you'll eventually be able to use these Pokemon again. So right now it's kind of a scam.
Yeah. I mean, you know me. I've never been a fan of mobile gaming. And I only think Nintendo did this because they're doing because of Pokemon Go. And what worries me, excuse me, what always worries me, I know I don't think Nintendo would ever do it, but there's always the possibility that they'll do what Game Freak is doing, and they'll start kind of focusing on mobile gaming if they have like a bona fide hit on their hands. Like, let's say Super Mario Run was even more popular than Pokemon Go, right?
Right.
How different would the Mario franchise look? We don't know. I mean, I don't think anything would have changed. Maybe other than the fact that maybe there would have been a parkour mode in New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. But I mean, I don't know. I really don't. But we also, as the consumer, we have to be careful for which products we buy or we consume, because as we see here, money talks, and game developers sometimes, or not game developers, but game companies could be stupid and they could read into the wrong thing. Like, oh, you like nostalgia? Let's put it in every single game. No, that's not why we like the game, you idiot. But
Exactly. But I think that
I
should
think
about
we
wrap it
covered
up.
everything.
We covered it in
Yeah.
detail. I really hope the game gets better. But for now, I just wanted to make this video because I feel it's important to address criticism. It's important to not make people feel ashamed for giving their opinion. You're not harassing anyone as long as it's in a dignified manner. Fans should speak out against stuff like this. But for now, Pokemon Sword and Shield is a disaster.
It's a fiasco. Well, I'm Ty the Guy 2800.
And I'm Demeech. And keep calm and da-da on.